Warning: some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? The Squatch Father from the North American Dogman Project. Yes, one of the regional managers. It is always great to align with a fellow North American Dogman Project for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Much better. Yes, even I need to feed or I become angry and weak. Without further ado, it is time for the Squatch Father and myself to take a walk into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. We have an OG with the North American Dogman Project who has stopped back in. And if you do follow what I post, you will have noticed he's been here before and hopefully will be back again. We have the Squatch Father, aka Al, in the house. How you doing, my friend?
Hey Kenny, how you doing, my friend? Thank you for having me, brother.
I appreciate it. It's always great to pop in and, like I said, sit down with you and figure out what the heck's going on. What have you been up to, man?
Working, basically working on the job, working at the house. I did get out and recently with Brian when he was here in New York, and we did an investigation at a couple of stone chambers, and we had some stuff happen to me that was a first timer for me, and I was really, really excited about it. And I don't know why the thought never crossed my mind to do it before, but I was pretty shocked when it actually worked what I was doing. So that was pretty, exciting. We tried to replicate the time we opened up a portal, but we couldn't get the portal to open up this time. But I was working with dowsing rods and quartz crystal pendulums, and I was asking, giving him command, and it was doing it and everything. And we did a day night. We went to three chambers during the day, and then same three chambers at night. We filmed everything, so we got to get to it. But at one point, the thought came to me to do the same things with the pendulums and the dowsing rods, but only say the commands telepathically in my head to see if they would still work. And I did that, and sure as shit, not only did the dowsing rods move, but the quartz crystal pendulums moved as well. They did exactly what I told it to do with the commands, but this time the commands were silent, and whatever entity was moving those things, it could hear my thoughts, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Jeez, that's some pretty interesting and creepy but cool stuff right there for sure. And tonight, before you tell us some really nightmare fuel things. On a funny note, well, it probably wouldn't have been funny for you as you're yelling at Brian to hurry up, but I had Brian on, about a month ago, and he's just talking about how he's sitting there pulling like a Austin Powers urination at a point in time where you knew that he probably shouldn't be, and you're yelling at him to hurry up, and he's like, dude, no, I'm not done yet. And I don't know, I always just get a kick out of that part.
Yeah, that dude. I mean, all I wanted him to do was get in the car so I could pull to the other side of the street and put the road between us and what was ever in the woods. And then he could have peed on the other side of the car. And then the car would have been between him and, but he just wouldn't get in the goddamn car no matter what I did. And I said, well, I kept telling him I'm leaving you. And he was like, no, you're not. What are you going to tell my wife? What are you going to tell my kids? Brian, get in and I'm trying to stay focused on what I'm looking at. And I said, okay, I got to do something. Once that creature closed its eyes, and the vibe I got when it closed its eyes, when I say it went invisible, I mean I couldn't see it anymore. And I had a headlamp on. But when it closed its eyes or it shut its eyes off or whatever it did, and it got down and it started belly crawling towards Brian because Brian had his back to it, the only thing I could think of doing was backing the Jeep up as close as I could to him and throwing the passenger side door open and put that between him and the creature. You know what I mean? Now, the creature could have still grabbed him by his legs and yanked him down underneath the Jeep door because the Jeep was pretty high. But I wanted to put something between him and it, some kind of metal. And that's when he got the heebie-jeebies, and he jumped in the truck, and we did a Dukes of Hazzard. We got the hell out of there. Yeah, but I mean, this was like the longest piss in history. He wouldn't. It just kept going and going and going. I'm like, dude, just get in the Jeep. Let me just go to the other side of the road, But he was like, can't stop now, and I was like, dude, you're gonna get us both. I would have never left them, And we didn't have any weapons on us that night because we were going to a cemetery. I think the only thing I had in the car was a couple of cans of pepper spray for dogs, because I was still working at the post office at the time. We didn't have any weapons on us because we were going to the cemetery. We thought it was a cemetery in the middle of town, but it was a cemetery in the middle of the woods. And we were surrounded by all kinds of things, and we didn't have anything to protect ourselves. And I was like, dude, get in the car already. Yeah, it was a crazy night, man. That was a crazy night.
Hilarious. And I mean, he does have such a valid point, though. What are you going to tell his wife and kids? You're not going anywhere, dude. You were just so messed up. So,
and he knew I wouldn't leave him. Like if he thought, if it would have been anybody else and he would have thought that person was just going to leave him there, he would have jumped in the car. But he knew I was going to stand my ground because he knows how I am. And he knew he could get as much out as he possibly could before, he was in mortal danger. And like I said, once he got the heebie-jeebies and he got it, and he got that chicken skin, he realized, okay, now it's time to go, and he jumped in the car. Like I said, I didn't know what else. I mean, I was watching it like a hawk because we both knew what it was, and it was hunting that car. It seen that Jeep underneath that streetlight on off-road on that trail, and it was hunting that car. There's no doubt in my mind. And it probably thought there was just like one lone dude running the trail at night. And me and Brian come out from across the street, from the cemetery, and we seen the eye shine from across the street because our headlamps were pretty strong. And I think we were in the middle of the street when we stopped, and we're like, well, what's that, And it was pretty big, and we were like, we knew, we both knew immediately what we were dealing with. And like I said, there's no doubt in my mind it was hunting that car. And now you may hunt that trail every night for deer. I don't know. But I think it seen the car and it thought, okay, people are easy prey, just grab them, run them, drag them into the woods. But instead of coming down the trail from the mountain, we were coming in from across the street, and we see the eye shine. And we both knew immediately. And I was like, let's just hope when we get to the car, this thing turns and runs, and we know it's just a deer. but it didn't turn and run, man. It just did its ground, And then eventually, I don't know if it shut its eyes off, if it closed its eyes, and it was just going by scent, sniffing out Brian. Because once those eyes went dark and I couldn't see him anymore, that's when I started to panic. Like, dude, get in the effing car now. I don't know where it is. I have a gut feeling it's belly crawling towards you. You got your back to it. You're an easy, and but he knows how I am, and he's just like, nah, you're not gonna leave me. I should have left him. I should have just pulled off and went to the other side of the street. I bet you he would have ran across the street with his Johnson hanging, swinging in the breeze. You know what I mean? I should have done that because he could have got me, but I don't leave anybody behind.
No, for sure. But what the Christmas trees? That's hilarious, dude. Well, you also have informed me recently you have had some other Dogman activity without Brian. If you would like to touch base on some of that, I'm definitely interested to. Well, hopefully it's nothing that you feel threatened by, but I'm totally interested in hearing this.
Well, we were out on a location doing an investigation, and we got bluff charged by a Dogman. Okay, then that happened in October on a Halloween, one Hallows Eve, and we didn't know what bluff charges until somebody out, I think in California, had seen our photos and actually said, "Dude, you got a Dogman in this photograph," and he sent it to me. And I thought it was Photoshop. I thought he Photoshopped it until I got my SD card and threw it in my computer. And I seen, oh, wow, there was a Dogman in this picture. How did we not notice it, But time had gone by, and I felt like I was being pulled back to that location. I didn't know why I was being pulled back to that location, but I told Brian and I told the other guy who was my cameraman at the time, Bill, I'm going back. You guys don't have to come. But I'm being pulled back. I have to go back. And they're like, no, we'll go with you. We went out, and long story short, when we didn't think there was anything to be found, and I was very confused. Like, I got hit with infrasound as I got closer to the area that kind of knocked me out. And the camera guy, Bill, wanted to leave, but I was like, no, I could see where I want to be. I'm too close to leave now. And eventually a little voice in my head said, jump on this rock. I jumped on a rock, and then I had a walking stick, and the voice said, move the cattails. And I moved the cattails, and there was a trackway going right into the swamp. And when the camera guy, Bill, jumped on the rock and Brian jumped on the rock, he zoomed in with his camera, and we seen a den in the middle of the swamp. And inside the den was a huge canine-looking Dogman, the one with like the wolf head. Then there was there was another one in there, smaller one that had the hyena head, which I believe was the one that actually bluff charged us that night. And then there was something in there that looked like the creature from the Black Lagoon that was in the den. And that thing was holding looked like little monkeys' hands. I don't know if they were baby Sasquatches or what, but it had two little Sasquatches. And we were freaking out when we seen all this, never thinking that we were, we never thought we were ever come up on there was a Dogman den in the swamp behind us. And I think that was the reason why the hyena one bluff charged us, because we were so damn close to the den, but we didn't know it. And, me being me, I don't like to leave. I always feel like there's more to come. And when that thing came bluff charging up the ridge line, and we all pulled our machetes, and it didn't come over the wall, we went and looked for it. We couldn't find it. But anyway, I went back and we found the den. And I was like, okay, this is what I was being pulled back for, to find the den. We found a Dogman den. There's two Dogmen in the den with other creatures that we don't know what they are. And then, again, the little voice in my back of my head said, go up on that high ridge. I went up on a high ridge, and I seen a trackway that came out of the back of the den and went straight down the swamp to the north. I was like, wow, so they're going in and out both ways, And as time went on, I didn't think much of it, we found something that looked like a corral, that something had made a corral out of trees. It was either a corral or it was something a choke point to like herd deer in and then ambush it. You know what I mean? But it was done with down trees, and it was very strange looking. We got photos of that, and so I'm home one night. I didn't give it a second thought. I said, okay, that's why I was being pulled there. I got that out of the way. It's out of my system. It's all good. I'm laying in bed one night. Again, I'm a guy from the city. I live up in the country now. My bedroom's on the first floor. I never leave my bedroom window open because I'm from the city. And that night it was particularly warm. It was a warm fall night. I think it was like November or something. And I had the bedroom window open. And I was laying in the bedroom, and the cat was between me and my wife in the middle of the bed. And I woke up out of a dead sleep because I felt something on the other side of the wall in the yard. I just felt some kind of energy, and it didn't feel like Bigfoot to me. It felt a little bit more darker, you know. And I was like, "What the hell?" And then the cat caught wind of something, and it jumped off the bed and it ran upstairs and it hit underneath the kid's bed. And I put my hand on the wall and I tried to feel the energy coming through the wall, try to get a picture of what's out there. And the image I got in my mind's eye was a Dogman. And I was like, this is nuts, you know? What's the Dogman doing at my house? And I put my face towards the screen, which I probably should have never done because they could have just grabbed me and pulled me out by my head. But I put my face by the screen. I couldn't see anything, but I heard something sniff, you know? And I was like, oh shit, there's something out there, you know? So I closed the window, locked it. I grabbed my pistol grip shotgun that I keep in between my guitars on the bed. And I started walking towards the kitchen, which has the sliding glass door that goes out to the deck. And as I'm walking through the hallway, getting into the living room, the little voice in my head says, stop. You don't want to see what's out there. Go back to bed. And I was like, okay. Now this is totally against every fiber of my being. But the voice said I should go back to bed. I didn't want to see what was out there. So I went back to bed. Put the gun back behind the guitars, went back to sleep, went to work the next day, came home, and we had just had some lines put in for the well for our septic, not our septic, our well, a well for water. And so there was no grass in this particular area where they laid the lines down from the backyard to the house. And in that clear dirt were 3 claw marks. And it ran almost directly underneath that window. And to me, that was it telling me, yeah, I was here, you know? And I was like, wow, that's crazy, you know? And I called Brian. I told him what's going on. And he was like, dude, you got to be careful. You get up early in the morning, you go to work. Something could be waiting for you out there. And, you know, and I was like, yeah, I didn't understand why it came to my house at first, you know? And then a week went by and it was quiet. And then one morning I got up, 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a couple weeks later, maybe early December. And I always go out with a little, you know, pocket knife and a can of pepper spray because every now and then we'll have packs of wild dogs run through the neighborhood tearing up the garbage, you know. And I don't want to be a statistic. I want to be able to survive an attack, you know. So I always have my little pocket knife and my pepper spray in my pocket. And as I'm walking down the walk to the front of the driveway, and there's 4 cars in the driveway. There's my daughter's car, who's closest to underneath the deck by the garage door. My son's car, my wife's car, and mine. I'm closest to the street because I'm the first one to leave. As I'm walking down the front walk, I get the feeling that something is looking at me, you know, and I turn around and I'm looking in my yard and I don't see anything on my deck. I don't see anything in my yard. I'm looking at my neighbor's yard on either side of me. I don't see anything. But, okay, you know what? I get in the car. I start the car, but let it run, warm up because it was cold that morning. And as the car's running, I'm walking back to the front of the house to go in to make my coffee and everything, you know. And something tells me, the little voice in my head says there's something under the deck. And I was like, what's under the deck? Is I felt an energy underneath my front deck. So I start walking towards my front deck. And as I'm getting close to now, the spotlight, the floodlights are in my eyes. So I got my hand up to block the floodlight so I could actually see. And as I'm getting closer and closer to the deck, I'm starting to see an image. And I'm saying, is there a homeless person sleeping under my deck? Is this possible? I live in a really rural town. There's really no homeless people here. And as I started to get closer and closer, the little voice in my head said, you should stop right about here. And I was like, right around maybe the front door of my daughter's car. She had a four-door car, and I was at the beginning of the front door, and I stopped. And I looked, and I had the knife out in one hand and the pepper spray on the other. And I looked, and I looked, and I looked. Now I'm underneath the floodlight, so the floodlight's not actually hitting my eyes anymore. And my eyes are starting to focus. And I see the largest canine head you've ever seen in your life looking at me. Now, I don't see any eye shine. I don't see any teeth, but I see this giant canine head that looks exactly like the one in the photograph. And as I'm focusing in, I start to see it's got a mane over its shoulder and down its chest, and it's looking at me, and I'm looking at it, and I'm getting the vibe. Now, I don't know if it communicated with me telepathically. I'm not going to claim that it did, but I heard in my head, again, it could have been the voice, my guardian angels, or in my head telling me this, or it could have been the creature. I'm not sure, but I heard in my head, you should stop right where you are, because if you come any closer, I'm going to shred you. And I was like, okay, that got me to stop. And then I said, okay, I don't know what's underneath my front deck. I mean, I knew what was underneath my front deck, but I'm kind of in denial, right? And I start backpedaling out. Now, I have a lot of firearms. I'm a firearm kind of guy. And my son is trained with him. My son-in-law was living here at the time. He's got firearms. And I was like, do I wake up my son and my son-in-law, and then we load up the guns, and do we go blow this thing up in front of my garage door? Or I've heard a lot of stories where that turned out bad for the people who did that. Maybe I should just leave this thing alone and let it be. Oh, at one point, I opened up the sliding glass door at 4 o'clock in the morning to feed our outside cat. She slept in the old dog house. Her name was Callie. I fed her at like 4:30. And at that point, she was coming around the front of the house to use my wife's garden as a litter box. And she seen something under the deck that made this little like 7-pound cat do a Halloween thing, jump up in the air and run into the woods. And you could hear her running in the woods. She sounded like a bulldozer running in the woods. It's a little 7-pound cat, which also put up the red flag for me. And so I go in the house and I say, okay, what am I going to do? Do I load up the guns, then go outside, wake up Joe and Nick and go outside and deal with this? Or do I just let it be? I don't know. I'm going to let this be because I've heard too many bad stories where things go bad for people who actually shoot at these things. So I don't tell anybody. I go, I do my thing, and I go as I'm leaving. After I get all my coffee and I make my lunch for the day, and I'm going back out to my car, I have my tactical flashlight with me, and I look under the deck with the tactical flashlight, and there's nothing there. So I go underneath the deck and I look, and there on my brand new retaining wall is this liquid that looks oily and stinks to high heaven. Smells like pneumonia. Okay. It is going down my retaining wall and down my driveway into the drain. And now I'm pissed. I'm like, son of a, this thing just peed all over my brand new retaining wall. It's marking its territory. Now, at the time, I didn't remember, but while we were at the den, there was a point in time where I had to relieve myself. Not that I was marking my territory, I was just relieving myself. So this creature must have seen that and said, well, if you're going to come to my house and piss on my wall, I'm going to come to your house and piss on your wall. So that's what he did. So I'm thinking, this thing is marking its territory. This is not good, right? So I get in the car. I don't tell anybody, and I leave and go to work. Get to work about an hour early. I'm down in the lunchroom having coffee, reading the paper. And my wife calls me up and she's hysterical. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, the sliding glass door in the back. I opened up the door to feed Callie. And good thing Nick was in the kitchen with me, because the whole door fell out of the frame. And he caught it. And he was able to push it back up and lock the door. I got like 3 or 4 different locks on my sliding glass door because, again, I'm from the city. You know what I mean? But this thing went around the back of my house, and it tried to pop my sliding glass door out of the track. Now, I don't know if it was trying to get in or if it was just trying to show me how easy it is to get in if it wanted to. But like I said, because I have locks that go up into the ceiling and into the wall and down into the floor, it never came out of the track until everything was unlocked. And my wife was freaking out. I was like, well, what are you feeding the cat 4 or 5? What I fed the cat at 4, you know? And I said, all right, I'm off tomorrow. And I come home tonight. Tomorrow, I'll pull the whole thing out of the wall and I'll reset everything, you know? And that's what I did. And that's when the thought came to me, you know what? I went to his house and I know where he lives. And now he's just telling me he's come to my house and he knows where I live. You know what I mean? And the first time, I guess maybe he wanted me to go out into that kitchen and put the lights on in the backyard so I could see him. But something stopped me, so I never got eyes on him. But the second time, he was waiting for me in the driveway, you know, in the shadows. And I got eyes on him that time, you know. So I actually went back to the den like a week later. And I said, listen, I'm not coming back here anymore. I got the message. This is your house. This is your property. I'm going to stay off of your property. Don't come back to mine. And I've never been back to that den. And a friend of mine wants me to take him there this fall. So we may be going back in a couple of weeks. You know what I mean? And that was just like the craziest thing that I've ever experienced. That, you know, it was, I didn't even remember that I urinated that day up against the tree in front of the den. You know what I mean? Because it was just something I did unconsciously, you know. But he must have took that to heart, and he came back and he tracked me all the way to my house, you know, and did the same. And they took a lot of Clorox and what do you call that? Dial or whatever it is, that's that liquid soap, to get that greasy urine with that ammonia smell off the wall and off the driveway floor. Yeah, I was doing a lot of scrubbing with a real heavy duty bristle broom to get that off, you know, because it stunk to high heaven.
Jeez, I'm a crow. That is absolutely so creepy, so interesting, so bizarre, and so gnarly all into one right there. And I definitely appreciate you sharing that and educating me on all that. And before I do let you get back to your busy schedule, I wanted to ask you something, but also when you say it was that type of urine, the only thing I can think of is I remember a skunk one time sprayed the inside of our screen door, but hit like the metal part, and it was awful. Obviously, it's skunk, but it was like almost an oily type substance, not just say urine. It's really hard to get that smell and also that oil material off the door, and it's still to this day kind of has that spot where I hit it. It was white, still has like a weird kind of tint to it. So yeah, so I
Yeah,
can
and
totally
it did have
imagine.
it did have like it did have like a yellowish, almost not even yellowish, I would say more like a reddish kind of tint to it, because the retaining wall was like, regular cement looking block. It wasn't painted or anything. So you could see the color of it. Not so much in the driveway because the black top kind of hit it, but when it was up against the wall, it had like almost like a peppery kind of oil, you know what I mean? Tint to it, yeah.
Ugh, brutal. And so when you were at the den, the reason I asked this is because I've heard you mention this before, and it makes a ton of sense. And actually, it's something that our science team loves too, is because hyenas dig burrows that are around 7, 8, 9 feet deep, but hyenas are massive packs and usually never give up their burrows unless they're kicked out by other hyenas, other animals that overtake it. So very rarely have humans really been able to consistently study their burrows or dens, but they know they go, like I said, at least 7, 8, 9 feet down. So they love the burrow. Okay. And we have people missing all around these areas in the cave systems, etc. And I think, and this was before I heard what you said, that they kind of have this tendency like a trapdoor spider. Okay. So think, you're 7, 8 feet down, maybe more, that could easily lead into a cave system. And they're just perched up and they're like a trapdoor spider would be, right? Covering that area, and they can easily pull something back. But then I heard you saying that the angle that they sit at, kind of with their haunches back up in there, and then they wait and they come out and attack. That would just make so much sense now to how they're pulling someone back potentially into like the cave systems, etc. And I know coyotes, they will dig their own burrows and dens, but same thing, they usually overtake like an empty barrel one or something like that. How did, I guess, that den, obviously you weren't really able to fully get up in there, but did it look similar to maybe like a hyena type like burrow? And also, how do you feel with, like you said, the angle that they sit at? Does that make sense with the trapdoor spider theory as well before I let you go?
Yeah, I couldn't get into that den because it was in the middle of a swamp, and actually my cameraman Bill thought he was going to walk in there. And I said, Bill, you don't have 7 foot legs. You know what I mean? You're short legs, and this is a swamp. So I couldn't get into that den. The way that den looked to me, it looked more like it was pulled over. It was like saplings that were all pulled over and then like kind of bound together with you know vines and stuff. I don't know if I believe that where that den was solid dirt. You know what I mean? I think there was swamp all around it, but that den was built on solid dirt. Now, whether or not it had a den, they actually dug down deep into it, like there was a hole that went down. I don't know, but I have been in other dens, Dogman dens, and they do dig down deep, and they get down below the wind line. So if it's raining or snowing or just cold, they'll get down, and that whatever it is, rain or snow, will just blow over them, over their top of their back.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Or even get down lower than that, so they don't feel it at all. But that particular den, I couldn't get into because, like I said, we couldn't get into the swamp. Brian wanted to get a drone and fly it in there, but we never actually did that because I wasn't going back. I made that deal with him. I'm not coming back here anymore. Um,
Yes.
but the other ones that I have been in very thick foliage, pricker bushes and stuff like that. And there's like there looks like a little tunnel that leads in. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
once you get into the tunnel, you get to the opening of the actual den. Again, everything, the foliage is pulled down, the saplings, it's all tied together with vines and stuff. And it's almost like an igloo. It's roundish, and
Yes.
it's
That's
like
why I asked you that, because we have a picture of that, man, where it's
and
pulled down like that. And then when they go in a little bit, there's a burrow that is going
there's a
down into
burrow,
the
yes,
ground.
and the
Yes.
burrow. And when I got to that den, when I crawled in there, because everybody thought I was nuts to go in there, But I was like, there's no way I'm not checking this out. Whereas in tingling, telling me I was as dangerous, I didn't get any vibes that there was anything in there. I don't know if there wasn't in the area at the time or if it was an old den. So when I crawled in, I really didn't expect to see a burrow, a hole. And when I got inside and I seen the hole, and I was like, holy cannoli, there could have been something laying here just waiting for me and just grab me and just that was it. I would have been done, it would have been a done deal. But that was an eye opening event, that woke me up. That I was like, okay, you know what? Let's not crawl into these things anymore because we don't know what's actually inside the burrow,
100%.
Yeah, but there always seem to be saplings, and not just one or two, but a whole bunch, like 5 or 6. It's deep in deep foliage, and it's pulled down and it's wrapped together with vine, and it makes like an igloo kind of thing, and it protects them from the rain and the snow and the heat, and then they dig down. And what they usually do too with something else I noticed, the dirt that they take out from the inside of it, they put in front, and they build like a slope.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the rain does come down, it hits that slope and rolls away from the hole and not into the hole. And that was something else I discovered that day when I was in there.
That's brilliant stuff right there. And no, the reason I just asked is because hyenas are related to mongoose and weasels, and they just love to dig. And, mongoose and weasels love to dig as well. So it just really rings a bell. And I think, and you just verified it, that there's just different entrances going in and out, just like with any other burrow. Ways to pop up here, pop up there. So
Yeah,
but
now I don't get me wrong. I did not jump down into that burrow to see if there was an escape route somewhere at the bottom of it that led out somewhere else. I wasn't going into it when I as I started to get closer and I seen that little slope of dirt, and I was like, what the hell is this? Look at all this dirt. And it didn't dawn on me at first that there was going to be a burrow in there, because I was thinking it was just going to be flat ground underneath this canopy type thing. And I seen all the dirt, and then when I crawled over the top of the dirt, and it was a nice incline because there was a lot of dirt there, you know what I mean? And then I looked down and I seen the hole, and I was like, okay, you could have been mauled. You're an idiot and you should get out of here. And I was like, okay. And then when I got out, and everybody was like, what was in there? What was in there? And I told them, like, oh, you got to go back in and take pictures now. Like, no, I'm not going back in now. I just got out of there with my life. I'm not going back in, because if there
not
was
pressing that.
another way in or out from a different entrance, you know what I mean? It could have been coming in as I was leaving, So yeah.
That's so awesome. No, you're
Yeah.
very valid on that. Like you said, the one time I'm not pressing it again. But well,
No,
thanks
no.
so much for popping in tonight, man. You're a busy guy, and I always do appreciate lining up with you and getting to pick your brain. And you shared some really imperative and excellent information tonight. So I give you a big kudos on that, and I do appreciate that, my friend.
No, the honor is all mine for you inviting me on the show. I greatly appreciate it, and I really do appreciate you, and you more than anybody, because you do so much for the NADP.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy. If you did enjoy this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm, and I will see you very soon.